Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Callie, and today I'm going to be going through my top books that I've read in March. Now, for my stats in March, I read a grand total of 22 books. 16 of those were physical books, 4 of them were ebooks, and 2 audio books. So I have 5 books here, and these are all the books that I rated a 4.5 or higher. I did a lot of 4-star books this month, which 4 stars for me is still good, but sometimes depending on why I gave it 4 stars, which can depend on a lot of different things, sometimes I forget or something it didn't reach that peak of wow. Now, these ones that I have, I'm still thinking about these 5 books well after I've read them, and that's one of the clear signs to me of a really good book. To continue the breakdown of my stats for March, before I jump into these 5 books, for breakdowns, I read 7 fantasy books, 2 sci-fi, 8 romance, 5 historical. And then I DNF'd a total of 4 books for the month of March. I will eventually probably do a list of all the books that I have DNF'd this year, because I have gotten so much more ruthless when it comes to DNFing because I just don't have time for it. My TBR is way too long, and I want to get to books that are going to be like the ones on this list that are really good and really resonate with me. The first book that I have is Malibu Rising by Jenkins Reid. This is her latest book that came out last summer. I was really nervous to jump into this one because I loved her other 2 works, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones and the Six. Both of those were 5-star for me. Now, this one wasn't a 5-star. It was 4.5, but it had that very same quality that Jenkins Reid emanates in her stories. And that's the fact that she can take these celebrities, which is essentially how she's written these books to be, and written about the small, mundane things that they do in their life, as well as their history and their backstory, and make it interesting. It felt like I was watching, like Daisy Jones and the Six and like Evelyn Hugo, it's like I was watching a documentary about this family. This book follows the 4 children of this very famous musician. And we go back and forth from this one evening where they throw this just rager. Every year they throw it. Everyone knows that they throw it. So we're on this one day, but we also go back and forth to when they were kids, and we follow their mother's story. And the present day is happening in the 80s, and before is in between the 40s to 60s. And you see these kids growing up, and you start to understand how they are the way they are. You get all 4 of their perspectives. I found none of them to be boring. They were all really fascinating kids to follow. I was really invested in the mother's story, even though we never really got her perspective. She was almost a spectator in her own life, and I just really loved the emotion and just the simpleness of wanting a normal life that came from this story. I don't think this was as strong as her other 2 works, but I still absolutely adored this, and I'm still thinking about different scenes. They'll just come and pop up into my head because each character is so unique, but they have actual family dynamics that aren't stretched. They feel like real people. Again, it feels like you're watching a documentary of this famous family. Weirdly enough, I only have 1 fantasy on this list, and that is The Ivory Key by Akshaya Raman. This is another sibling dynamic story. We are following this group of royal siblings who the magic of their world is starting to die, and their father was really into treasure hunting and looking for this thing called the Ivory Key, which would bring back, it's not necessarily bring back the magic, but it's access to this well of magic. And so all of our siblings who have, again, a very real sibling dynamic where it's not like, I'd die for my sibling, but I also want to punch them in the face. They had that kind of banter, which made them feel very well developed and very good characterizations for the sibling dynamics. I loved all the siblings. I thought they were really fun. We have 4 of the siblings. We have 2 sisters and 2 brothers, and the oldest sister has just recently become queen, and all of her younger siblings think that she is just now this ruthless, evil queen. And when they start to go on this venture, they all start to kind of realize that what she's doing is for the best of the kingdom, and they couldn't make similar decisions that she has to make. And she's starting to realize that she's been too focused on her duties and has been neglecting her family. So there's a lot of give and take within the story, and I absolutely adored it. This is based off of Hindi folklore, and the story was beautiful. The characters were amazing. There was a couple of different romances, a lot of political intrigue. We had, some border skirmishes. We had some outside threats of rebellion. We had this whole magic deal. And there was just so much going on, but none of it felt convoluted or too much. And I really enjoyed everything about this. It was just such a wild ride. I cannot wait for the sequel. Up next, I have The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I finally dove into this story, and oh my god, I'm so happy I did. This is a Kylo Ren and Rey fanfic turned into a novel. We are following our scientist, Olive, who is a PhD candidate, and in order to convince her best friend that she is not lonely, she kisses the first man in the hallway while her friend's watching, which happens to be the most ruthless and mean PhD advisor, Dr. Adam Carlson. And after this incident happens, there's a lot of really fun banter with Olive internally panicking, and then them both deciding to fake date because it'll look good for both of them. And we have our fake dating trope. And it goes on from there. I loved this. This was adorable. As someone who has a degree in a science, I loved every aspect because Olive was a biologist, which is my degree, and all of it was really fun to listen to or to watch happen. Their banter was a really fun. The fake dating, it had the very seamless, where they're actually fake dating to where you see the transition to where they're not. There are secrets. There's a lot of talk about STEM and women in STEM. Being a woman in a science field and having to deal with a lot of the misogyny that's always been in the field. That was really well executed within this story. I also loved how passionate Olive was. She was not how a lot of people view women in STEM, where they are just mean and focused solely on their work. Olive had a really fun, bubbly personality, and I thought that was really refreshing from every other woman scientist in every other book that I've read. So I greatly appreciated it, and Ali Hazelwood is now an auto-buy author. With that, I have another book from her that I listened to, and that is Stuck With You. I gave this one 4.5. I have read the other two, but I think this one was my favorite out of all three. I like this one. These are short novellas on Audible, and I think they're all coming out on a hardback copy later this year. But we're following this group of 3 friends. Each novella follows a different friend as they are just entering their careers and obviously meet a love interest. So this one follows a civil engineer, and she gets stuck in an elevator with the CEO of her competing firm. And they went on this one magnificent date, and you flip back and forth between the magnificent date and them in the elevator, and you slowly start to see where everything went wrong. It is a big on the miscommunication trope, but I think it's done really well where, yes, I knew it was going to be a miscommunication, but again, with the misogyny within any of the fields of science, engineering, with this one, you see why she goes to that deep end and why she explodes, and you're on her side for a lot of it. I mean, you stay on her side through the entire book, but it doesn't feel forced or annoying like most miscommunication tropes are. I would highly recommend all 3 of these. They are all available now. I think the last one just dropped last week. I don't know. I listened to it the day it came out, and I really like that one too. But I would highly recommend them. And like I said, Ali Hazelwood is just now an auto-buy author for me. Speaking of new authors to me, the last 2 books that I have are a part of a series, and I gave the first one 5 stars and the second one 4.5. and that is the Dreamland Billionaires series, starting with The Fine Print and Terms and Conditions. These books follow these 3 billionaire brothers who are essentially like the grandsons of Walt Disney. It's like a very Walt Disney-esque world, and they are trying to, after their grandfather dies, they are trying to take over the company, not in a bad sense, but their father is an ass, and none of them think that their father should be running this company, especially since it is a company geared towards creativity, ingenuity, loving families. Again, very Walt Disney. And so in their grandfather's will, he agrees with them, but he wants his grandsons to get away from their almost spiteful, and they grew up very hated by their father, and so that leaves a lot of lasting damage to their personalities. So our first one, we followed the youngest, which is Rowan, and Rowan is put in charge of the creative department. And what I love about Rowan is he used to be an artist, and his father almost just degraded him to the point of where he stopped drawing, and being in the creative department now, he is able to pick up back his passion, and seeing that unravel along with the romance with Zara, who is just too bubbly for words. It's really great to watch, and The Fine Print is so far my favorite. The third one comes out later this year, so I will definitely be picking up Cal's story, but so far, Rowan's is my favorite. Now, that is not to say that Declan's story isn't amazing. Declan's caveat to get his portion of the company, which is actually to become the CEO, because Declan is the oldest, is to get married and have a child. And I believe there's a time frame. I don't remember what the time frame was, but Declan was such an older brother. He was almost the father to his younger siblings, and he never believed in love after seeing what love did to his father and how it just can poison you. So it sounds weird to almost force a marriage and a pregnancy on a grandchild, but it kind of, you have to suspend your belief, and it worked. So his assistant, Iris, volunteers for the job after he drives away his last possibility of a bride, and they get married. And they're married most of the book. I think they get married like in like chapter 3 or 4. And we follow them trying to navigate a relationship, and they both are teetering around this. It's very will they, won't they, but they're already married, and that's really kind of interesting, and I loved their dynamic. They're both grumpy sunshine, and I'm obsessed with this series. There are so many great quotable moments within it, and they're just so much fun. I adore both these books, and Lauren Asher, I need to go and read her backlist because I'm just obsessed. So those are my top 6 books that I read. I'm really excited for what April, I'm actually going a little bit away from romance for April. So I'm hoping for a lot of really good fantasy this month. And that's going to be it for today's video. Please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. We post videos every Tuesday, Thursday, with the occasional Sunday. And I'll see you guys in our next video. Bye!